Hello and welcome to the Dreaming and Doing podcast with me, Nicky Raby. I'm an actor, coach, writer, speaker, podcaster and a mum. And in my coaching work, I work with creatives, personal brands, freelancers and small businesses. In my podcast, I talk about success, but not in a traditional sense. I have conversations with those who have built a business from something they love or who have made a pivot in their career. Also those who have built a brand or a job that maybe didn't exist when they were at school and they found a way to monetize their skills, talents and expertise. I've spoken to loads of incredible people, coaches, designers, journalists, app creators, magazine editors, bloggers, content creators, authors, and all-round movers and shakers. I ask the questions that you want to know the answer to. So how they started, about money, saying no, saying yes, pitching, presenting, putting yourself out there, even though it terrifies you, standing out in a busy online world, growing, scaling and making your work for you and your circumstances. The show notes are always at nickyraby.com/podcast and the conversation continues across social media, often on Instagram, my favourite platform, at Nicky Raby. Thanks so much for listening. It's great to have you with us. In today's episode, I'm talking to Mel Bound, who is the founder and the CEO of This Mum Runs. 4 years ago, she decided to get back into exercise and running after having her children. And she put a note on a local Facebook group and said there was an invitation if anybody would like to join her. 75 people happened to meet her at that gate that evening and This Mum Runs was born, and now she hosts runs all over the country. Everything is growing. It's so exciting. And November marks their 4th birthday. There's so much value in this episode, whether you're a runner or not, but there's a real emphasis of taking time for yourself, looking after your own well-being, especially if you're caring for other people as well, and making sure that you're getting plenty of headspace and reflection and clarity for yourself too. I know it's hard, I know this, but it's always about taking small steps. Keep an eye out over the next couple of months because I'm going to be doing a collaboration with Mel. More details coming soon. But if you want to find out all the details first, come over to Instagram at Nicky Raby, or you can join my mailing list and get my weekly magazine, nickyraby.com/magazine. Here's the episode. Hope you enjoy. Look forward to your thoughts. Hi Mel, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Oh, you're so welcome. So tell us about what you do. What's your job description and your business?
Wow, so I'm the founder of the most amazing community for mums called This Mum Runs. And we're an on and offline community. So online, we've got a community of groups on Facebook where mums can kind of support and encourage each other to make time for themselves and get back into some semblance of regular exercise after having kids, which we all know how hard that is.
Yeah.
And then offline, we have a range of different ways that women can get involved. So we have a program of free runs at times that fit around the kids every week. We do that from 3 cities. And we also have a number of coaching programs. So for women who've never run before or just haven't got the confidence to get started, we have a range of coaching programs for them too.
That's so brilliant. And I think running is still such a weird, horrible flashback from being at school and being told to run in the rain in some horrendous 70s, 80s, 90s shorts that are definitely not pure cotton, all kinds of synthetic material, and just being shouted at and being told that you weren't fast enough. And I think it kind of runs deep, this sort of situation. So I guess how did it start? Were you a runner before you had kids?
I was actually one of those really annoying sporty kids at school that enjoyed cross country, I'm afraid to say. But something really interesting happened for me when I had my kids. So I went from being someone that was super active and pretty confident in myself physically to literally a physical mess, and became an inactive person. But from within the space of 2 or 3 years, I'd gone from exercising every day to literally not even thinking about exercise. and just feeling a little bit like I'd lost myself in the midst of the nappies and the buggies and everything that I was doing with my kids. So out of desperation, really, I put a post onto a mum's Facebook group I thought if I find someone else who feels a bit like me, maybe it will be okay. And maybe we could meet at 5 a.m. or something, which is the only time I thought I had available to do any exercise. And we could go from there. And so I put this post on Facebook, and it was in November, so it was probably the worst possible time of year to even think about starting anything like this. It was cold and rainy. And one Wednesday evening, I stood outside the park. I'd said that I would stand outside the park, and if anyone wanted to come and meet me for a run, they should just turn up.
Was that scary, sort of putting yourself out there?
It was so scary, and I almost didn't go because it was literally pouring with rain. And I said to my husband, "Oh, no one's going to turn up. Maybe I won't go." And he more or less pushed me out the door. I think he knew that I really needed to do that for myself. And 75 women turned up to meet me at that first run, which was, absolutely terrifying, but also a moment where I thought, oh my goodness, there are just so many women feeling exactly like how I've been feeling. And it started from there, really.
And did you know what to do with that? Was it just a case of, all right, then let's just run? How did it start to become a thing where you were sort of really stepping into being the leader of that?
Well, I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I had in a kind of a former life, it felt like literally a lifetime ago, I had actually done a sports degree and worked in the health and fitness industry, but it was kind of another life and it just wasn't part of me anymore. So I didn't know what to do, but I just said, well, let's head off. And we ran for about 10 minutes up the road and then came back.
Went to the pub.
And that was literally it. But I think everyone was just in slight shock that we were out of the house without a buggy and without nappies, and we'd missed bedtime. And everyone was just slightly hysterical and euphoric about it all. And we just said, "Oh, shall we do it again next week?" And I said, "Okay, well, I'll set up a Facebook group just so we can kind of stay in touch." And everyone joined it. And then before I knew it, just through word of mouth, really, hundreds of women were joining. And women in different parts of Bristol, where I live, asked me to start organising runs in their part of Bristol. And then women in different parts of the country started asking me to organise runs in their area as well. And I just realised it was something. And it was something that I felt was very, very important and that I wanted to spend more time on. So about 8 months later, I actually gave up my job.
Wow.
To do it full time. Yeah, I know. Crazy.
And what has really helped you to grow this community? Because everybody kind of talks about, build a community, have an engaged following. And what have been the things that have just really helped elevate that? Because you've got thousands of people who have really connected with that. And I think sometimes as well, because running is such a known thing, it's, like a breakfast cereal or whatever, that people just think, oh, there can't be any space left. Everything's being taken. But I presume you just haven't found that to be the case, that there is a brand new conversation to start.
Yeah, I think, there's a few questions in there, I guess. But I think the main thing is that what I realised quite quickly was there was just this massive gap for women who really were terrified of exercise. And, they were never going to be the person that would go along to their local running club or even go along to their local gym, because of what you described at the beginning of this podcast, with, that flashback feeling from school and the horror of being shouted at and being laughed.
Yes.
That runs pretty deep with a lot of women. And there just was nothing for those women. There is nothing for those women. So I think what I've been trying to do right from the start is fill that gap. And we've done that through community, but also, the community is not just me. It's a massive team of volunteers. We've now got, I think, between 400 and 500 volunteers. We call them Run Angels. They lead our runs now every week. We train them, and they now take on that role in their local areas. And they also are very involved in our online community. So it's way more than just turning up and meeting each other for a run every week. It's actually about driving real social change around the way women feel about exercise and making it accessible to as many women as we can. And I think the other thing is focusing less on come along and go for a run and then we'll train you and you can do a race, or you can get a PB if you come next week, if you do this, that and the other.
Yeah.
It's more around, actually, do you know what? Just use running as a way of getting half an hour to yourself every week. And how fast you go and how far you go are really not important. It's more just the fact that you've managed to get out of the house and meet a bunch of women and had some time that's just for you for half an hour. And suddenly that kind of unlocks exercise for a lot of women because they realise they can do it. And if they view it in that way, it is possible for them to do it as well.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I had this moment this morning, Matt's away at the moment. I had a really teary, Mummy, don't go, from nursery this morning. Yeah. And I'm training for the 5 to 10K. And this week was supposed to be, or today's run was supposed to be the 50-minute run, which I've never run that far before. Yeah. And it was that moment where it all started well. And I was, I had a big bumper day of stuff to do. And I actually only did half of it today. But also as well, now I'm in a stage that it becomes sort of so regular. Like, I know I'm not going to wait until 4 months on Tuesday before I do it again. That I ran for half an hour, but I got the headspace, I got the clarity and the sort of emotional support that I needed. Went home, phoned the nursery. He was absolutely fine. Of course he was. But it was a really brilliant way to start my day. So that sense of it doesn't have to be this huge, go to Bali for 2 weeks and find yourself, that you can do it around your local park.
Yeah, and I think a big part of what we really encourage the women in our community to do is focus on the feeling of running. So, and listening to and re-engaging with your body. So, when you have kids and it all becomes about the kids and the family, and you're slightly disconnected from yourself physically after having a baby as well, I think.
Very much so.
And so actually being able to take that 5 minutes or 1 minute or half an hour, whatever, just to reconnect with yourself physically is so important. And really kind of consciously thinking about how that feels. And if it feels really uncomfortable and you're really out of breath and it feels too much, then just slow down.
Yeah.
It really doesn't matter how fast you go.
I've been quite surprised how quickly you can build up the momentum of it, because I did the couch to 5K, and as I was saying earlier, the first time I went, in the first minute I was counting the seconds to the first minute, and then suddenly it's like my body's remembered, and there's some weird, and it's not necessarily about weight loss for me, I'm not kind of going to be on and off the scales, go, oh brilliant, I've lost half a pound, I've got bigger fish to fry and eat probably, but it's that sense of just getting that confidence of, oh, hang about, I can do this. And when I did my longest run that I've ever done in my life the other week, it did give me a bit of a, well, if I can do that and if I can endure that, it did help me in other areas of my business as well.
Yeah. And do you know what? You telling that story, that's one of the things that I think creates the kind of amazing momentum we've got in our community, is that women will share stories like you just described, and they'll say, oh, I didn't think I could, and then I did it, and this is how I felt. And other women in the community will see that and think, well, okay, well, her life is just like mine, and she's out there doing it and giving it a go, so maybe I could.
Yes.
And it's that thing that kind of gives other women the confidence to actually give it a try is really magic.
Absolutely, because again, with all of these things, when we go into your favourite running shop, whatever that might be on the high street, I sometimes look at those women who are in the pictures and I think, oh no, I don't look like any of them. Yeah. But also those women that are in them are like 19, 20-year-olds sometimes. And I'm thinking, how are you affording a 90 pair of leggings, 90 quid's worth pair of leggings, that it doesn't have to be this whole lifestyle thing. It can actually start small, see if you like it, and then realise that you need a really good bra.
Yeah, I mean, we always say to people at the very beginning that, don't splash out on, lots of expensive kit, but do buy yourself a decent bra and a pair of trainers. I have coached some women who've turned up in Converse or believe it or not, have turned up in Crocs.
Oh, wow.
For a running session. There are some kind of basics that's important to invest in, just for comfort and to kind of avoid injury and giving yourself a black eye and all that. But it doesn't have to be a massive investment at the beginning. You can just give it a try and see what you think.
Definitely. How has running affected other areas of your life? So what other things have you gained from starting up this business and working your own hours and building the community? What have sort of been the biggest surprises along the way?
Well, I honestly feel that running this business, it's kind of the point of my life, the purpose of my life. So all of the experience I've had up until this point is I now use on a daily basis. Every job I've ever had in my life, there are skills and things that I've done that are now important for the work I'm doing now. But the interesting thing is, I think I always felt in corporate life that something was missing. So I had interesting jobs. I did lots of traveling, and I worked in events, and so it was very exciting. And I was away from home a lot, and it was great. Before I had children, it was just such a fantastic lifestyle. But I really, after I had children, really felt like something was missing. And the thing I realised was missing was that I just wasn't making any sort of difference to the world. And that sounds a bit cheesy, but that's what I get now. When I see the difference the work we're doing is making to women, their mental health, their physical health, and the health of their family, that's massively motivating for me.
Well, I'm 37 next week, and I suddenly did have that moment in the shower this morning of like, oh my God, like 37 is like a really grown up age. And a friend of mine who I went to drama school with popped round on Saturday, and my mum was there, and they hadn't seen each other for a little while. And she's like, oh, he's such a grown up now. And it was that realization of like, yes, we are at a certain age where actually we do need to take these things seriously. Yeah. But there's part of me also as well that I feel like I haven't even got started in so many different areas. And I think there can be that media pressure, especially when you become a mum, which I think is changing slightly, but you're sort of a bit on the shelf, or, you're a bit unavailable, or I don't know, you're not an exciting sector of society.
Yeah. That's absolutely. I think that's absolutely the case, and definitely how I felt after I had the kids. And it was made very clear to me in my job that I wasn't going to make much more progress because I dared to ask to work part time. And we all know that working part time when your kids doesn't really mean part time, because you're constantly when the kids are asleep, you're trying to pick up emails and catch up and stay on top of things. So it's like full-time work, but on part-time hours. But it was definitely made clear to me that I was going to go no further.
For sure.
So I think now being in control of that myself is massively empowering. And also, I employ a team of women who are also all mums, and they all work part-time and flexibly. So Joey, who's in my team, she's away in Spain this week, but she's working from Spain. It doesn't really matter to me where they work or when they do their hours, as long as the work I need them to do gets done. So there's something massively motivating about being able to offer that kind of work to other mums as well.
Oh, and I've Anna from Mother Pucker is doing so much brilliant stuff on flexible working, and that sense of, oh, isn't there a better way to do this? And I've really found that since having my own business, as a real opportunity to mix things up and work in a different way. And because I guess I was starting from scratch, I've found the technology that really supports that, so it can work in my favour. How did you transition it into it becoming a business and becoming more than just a see you at the park gates?
I think a couple of things happened. I realised quite early on, obviously, that I'd stumbled across this massive need, and from quite early on, women in our community were asking for a couple of things. So one of which was coaching. So I think I mentioned that women who've never run before or haven't done any exercise for 20 years are not just going to suddenly rock up to one of our free runs and run for half an hour. That's what happens. So.
Despite watching the Olympics lot. So I always feel like once I've watched the Olympics, I'm like, God, I really feel... No, I've just watched it from my sofa.
Yeah, exactly. So I started quite early on offering coaching programs that women paid to come along to. And that's a kind of core part of what we offer. The second thing that happened was that women started, because they felt like they were part of something important, they wanted to be able to self-identify or identify each other when they were out running. They asked me to start making some T-shirts, and so I did. I bought a batch of them, and I had them in my spare room upstairs, and I thought, oh, that should be enough for 6 months or something. And I put them on our website to sell, and they all sold out within 24 hours.
Whoa.
Yeah, and so I bought some more, and they sold out. And then I realised that women who were in parts of the world where we didn't even have runs were buying our clothing because they identified with the brand and what we stood for. So I set up a shop and online shop, and that kind of became the main focus for the business. The business side of things, I guess. The other thing that happened was I was up. This is in the really early days, but I was up one night feeding my son, and as you do, you're scrolling through Facebook and anything to keep.
I'd love to look back on my search history over that time. I'm sure I would have had all madness things, or like, oh, I'll just book a holiday to Morocco. Yeah. Oh no, wait, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah. And the things that you buy, and your husband is kind of like, why
do we need this? And we have one already.
Yeah, well, it was 4 a.m. I had nothing else to do. So yeah, I was up feeding him, and I was scrolling through, and an advert for a business accelerator program called Entrepreneurial Spark popped into my feed, and on a complete whim, kind of one-handed with him under my arm and my phone in my other hand, I tapped out an application without really thinking too much about it. And applied, and lo and behold, I won a place on this program, and so I left my job and joined this program, and I think that was the kind of one of the things that made the biggest difference, because all of a sudden I was 100% focused on developing a business.
Yes.
And the program provided you with mentoring and training and support in accessing and unlocking funding and investment and all those sorts of things that you need to get a business off the ground. And I really think without their help, I'm not sure we would have kind of grown as quickly as we have in terms of the business.
And I think there's something about filling in the form or making the phone call or paying for something and saying, right, I'm all in. I mean, I have it with coaching clients sometimes where they're like, I need to pay you today because otherwise by tomorrow I will have talked myself out of it and I will have gone to Westfield and bought myself some nice things. But there is something about that exchange of I'm all in that you have to get to that point sometimes where it just tips, where you're like, okay, there's no way back now. I have to go for it.
Yeah. I think the fact that I also didn't have another job.
Yes.
So my husband was kind of like, well, you've got 6 months to make this work. Otherwise, you get another job. I didn't. Obviously, it took me longer than 6 months, but I think it was obvious very quickly that there was a business in this. Yes. So it was worth persevering with.
Definitely. And often you don't need, I mean, I say this to clients as well. Sometimes we all feel like we need 10 years before we can even make a dent in something. Whereas actually, if you focus and you do one thing and you really sort of focus on it, then it can grow really. I mean, yours has grown incredibly quickly.
Yeah, I mean, our community now is, so from that first post and that first run with 75 of us, we're kind of 4 years on, and we're now a community of 35,000 runners, which is just insane. And we've got 40 products in our stores, and we shipped to I think over 30 countries last Christmas. And we've got big plans to roll out our free runs and our coaching across the whole of the UK next year. So, wow. From something which was just a desperate plea for help, really, to where we are now is just insanely fast.
It's amazing. And how do you, as the leader and as the CEO of it, how do you carve out that time for yourself so you're keeping yourself topped up? It comes up loads in the podcast, especially those of us who are serving other people and holding space for other people. How do you keep that sense of being topped up, but also those boundaries of like, okay, you have to go home to your house now. You can't keep running and coming into mine.
Yeah. Well, and I think also that's even more of a challenge when you're running your business on social media, because you're then, you are accessible at 24 hours a day. And it's definitely something at times I haven't got the balance right for. And I talk to a lot of leaders, communities like ours, and it's exactly the same for all of us. That you go through stages where you're pretty close to burning out because you haven't created those boundaries and you haven't actually made that time for yourself. And I mean, I think the thing for me is that I'm lucky, I suppose, in some respects, is that if nothing else, I still have running. So, it would be the biggest irony of all, wouldn't it, if I actually wasn't making any time for myself through running?
Yes. Well, exactly. And it's one of those things where you have to say, I'm going for a run, but by myself, like most mums have to do when they go in the bathroom. Like, it's always that picture book about a 5 minutes piece or something where she says, I'm going to go up for a bath, and everyone goes, oh, brilliant, this is great.
Exactly. It's exactly like that. And actually, over the summer, I also took up open water swimming, believe it or not, because what I really, really wanted was something where I didn't even need to talk, and something that was new and a bit of a challenge as well, because I felt like I hadn't had anything like that for a while. And so I started open water swimming from scratch, and I trained for a 10k river swim in September, and the training was it really took me by surprise how relaxing it was and how meditative, and how it actually kind of really helped me sort out any anxiety for my week. I really recommend it for anyone who's kind of maxed out and stressed and thinking, God, how do I deal with this? Open water swimming is definitely the way.
Amazing. Well, I always watch those kind of sports relief things where people are doing those huge challenges, and when they say, oh, I'm cycling to Cornwall from Edinburgh, you're like, what? How is that happening? But there's something that your mindset kind of switches, and you're like, well, I'm kind of doing this, so let's get on with it. And
exactly.
I guess there must be something, if everybody's watching you on the telly, that you're like, oh, blimey, I better dig deep. Where do you want this month runs to go, like in the next months and years, and tell us about what you're doing in November as well.
So November is our 4th birthday, which I'm sure I can hardly believe, really, but 4th birthday, and we're using it as a really, really important milestone, to really kind of look back and reflect and take a bit of a moment to celebrate the things we've achieved already, because I think all of us are guilty of not really doing that enough. So we're going to be kind of telling some amazing stories of women in our community and the things they've done and achieved and overcome as a result of being part of This Mum Runs. But also, and this I'm really excited about, is that we're going to use it as a launch pad to take what we've created in Bristol and Bath and London, and launch it into a number of new cities next year. So we're going to be launching a call to action where women in other parts of the UK can let us know that they would like us to launch runs in their town or city. And by mid-December, we'll be launching the first 2 of those locations that we plan to launch in. So we're super, super excited about that.
Wow, wowzers. And what have been the components that have really helped you step things up to the next level? I know quite often there can be quite a lot of fear in business owners of like, I know I've got to do it, I know I've got to make the leap, I know I need to bring people on to, or whatever it is, whatever that struggle is. How have you kept that big vision and that big picture illuminating right at the end so you can keep going?
I mean, I think when you're running a business like mine, which is really about changing women's lives, that's pretty easy to do, because I just need to look into, I just have I dip my toe into one of our Facebook communities and I can see it, and I can see the things that are happening every single day. And so that has never really wavered. I think that the challenges along the way are the same as in any business. So, cash, actually making sure you've got enough money to do the things that you want to do, and then being able to hire the caliber of people that you need to achieve that vision as well.
Yes, absolutely. And that sense of being really firm in your principles and your decisions and what you need, because sometimes like something, I was sold something on a Facebook ad earlier and it kind of ended up in my feed, and the marketing copy was so compelling, and suddenly I was like, oh gosh, I need, and it's like, no, I don't, and I've got to stay focused and not get distracted and concentrate on that why. That vision is really brilliant. How do you deal with challenges, or when things sort of go slightly to the left when they should have gone to the right? What really helps you in the moment?
I think, well, the vision obviously helps, because I think that will always keep you on course. But the other thing for me has been gut instinct. And really believe that your gut and what that tells you is basically always the right thing to do. When I've gone against it in the last couple of years, it's always been the wrong thing.
Interesting. Yeah.
So I'm a big believer in gut instinct.
Yes, and just that sense of trusting it, that, even picking up on those signals of somebody being rude to you on the phone, or when I've had meetings with people and they're really rude to the waiter, or they don't wash their hands, or just like really weird things. It's like, you have to make sure that your values are aligned with those people. And
I think that's kind of doubly challenging for us, because we're doing so much of our growth is dependent on volunteers.
Yes.
So actually, recruiting the right people with the right mindset and who are in it for the right reasons is really important. And we've got a process for that now, but a certain amount of it is gut instinct as well.
Yeah, for sure. Where would you like to be in 5 years' time, in business, in life? What's the big plan, if you have one?
Well, I mean, the ultimate plan, and the ultimate plan is for us to have This Mum Runs communities in every town and city in the world. That's what I've set out to do. I know, just a little goal.
And you should definitely open all of those places and guys, I've got to come. People, my runners are asking for me. We must go to the Caribbean next month.
Exactly. I'm off to Maldives now. But the interesting thing is that we have inquiries from all of these places. Literally we have thousands of women who have already inquired about us taking runs to their area, their town, city, wherever they are, all over the world. Thailand, Canada, Auckland in New Zealand, all countries throughout Europe, and we've held things back because I wanted to make sure we had the systems and processes to support that sort of growth.
Yes.
And so the last couple of years may have felt like from the outside that the growth has been quite slow, but it's because behind the scenes we've been so busy putting all the right things in place. And now we've got all of those things and we're ready to go. So ultimately that's what we're trying to do.
And I think you've made two really practical points, that sense of cash flow and money and systems, because so often the vision and all the fancy stuff and the branding and the chats and the inspiration. Sometimes I find there's a lot of content out there. It's like, oh, it's so inspirational, but there has to be the foundations and the backbone behind all of these things in order to make it happen, because you just never want to be stressed in that way of thinking, oh my goodness, I actually can't pay for my parking here, but yet I'm inspiring all these people.
Yeah, exactly. Or worse for me, I mean, that's pretty bad, obviously, but worse for me would be if we launched somewhere new and the experience was really crap. Yes. And a woman turned up. I suppose one of my deepest fears is that a woman somewhere in the world turns up to one of our runs and she's had terrible experience of sport and she hasn't exercised for 20 years and she plucks up the confidence to turn up to one of our runs and then she has a really rubbish experience.
Yes, it can really put you. I remember going to a gym years ago to this exercise class, and I didn't realise that everybody knew each other and that the teacher had been there for years, and the teacher sort of humiliated me as I walked in and told me that I was sitting in the wrong place, but made some real weird comment, and it just put me off. And I'm sure she's lovely, this woman, but I see her around all the time and I just think, oh, that's such a shame, because I actually really enjoyed the class. The class was great. I could see why it was popular, but just that sort of cliquey thing is tricky. But if people want to come and find out more, and also you've got I'm going to add it in the show notes as well. We're going to do a promo for the clothing and things like that, so people can experience that in November. But I'll add that to the show notes. But if people want to come and find out more about what you're all about, and Also, as well, I'll tell you a little bit more at the beginning. Well, you'll have heard it by the time we get on to this episode. But we're going to do a run in November, so hopefully we'll get to meet some lovely podcast listeners in real life. What a dream!
Brilliant. That's going to be weird, though, hey?
I know, it'd be so nice. And also, as well, it's that thing when you put yourself out there that people know lots about you, but you don't know other people. So, and maybe it's like what it's like to be a Spice Girl for the day, but who knows? Who knows? But yeah, if people want to come and find out more, where should they go?
So I guess the best place is to go to our website, which is www.thismumruns.co.uk. And we've got all the information about, if we've got runs in your area, then we can direct you to the right Facebook groups for those. Or if you're interested in, looking at stuff in our shop, you'll be able to head there for the website. Or if we don't have anything in your area at the moment and you would like to, then you'll be able to register your interest on the website as well.
Fantastic, brilliant. Oh, Mel, I feel like if it wasn't so cold and dark, but I actually have done my run this morning, so
You've got your brownie points already.
I've done it, yeah, exactly. But I think it is that sense of, and another thing I was just going to add for me that's really helped is actually setting a goal at the beginning of the month of how many times I'm going to run. So I use this app called Strides, which I track all kinds of other things as well. But it's like a kind of sticker chart in a technological form that when I come back from my run, I'm like, yep, tick, done it today, the 29th of October as we're recording. So it's all those things of like just showing that you're actually doing it and you are making progress, even if you're not Usain Bolt yet.
Definitely, and who wants to be Usain Bolt anyway?
Exactly. I mean, all that arm action, it was just
too much.
Too much, exactly. Thank you so much. You've been such a brilliant guest, and I can't wait to meet loads of you in real life. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and I would love to hear what you thought of the episode and share any takeaways with me. Come and find me across social media at Nicky Raby, or you can visit the podcast page, nickyraby.com/podcast.